Be Quiet have followed up with yet another high-end air cooler that looks really promising on paper. This is the Darkrock Pro 5. While it's good and powerful, it's also nothing too special really. I mean, it does come with certain special features, but these are done in a proprietary way, thus making it hard for us to upgrade or swap out parts. You'll soon find out what I mean by that. As a matter of fact, I have to admit that I expected a little more from this CPU cooler, but perhaps my expectations were simply set unrealistically high, because the Darkrock Pro 5 is by no means bad, just needs improvement here and there. Price-wise, the CPU cooler falls within the $85 to $100 range, depending on where you order. Admittedly, that's anything but low for an air cooler, but let's see what we get here. The cooler comes practically pre-assembled out of the box. All you have to do is remove a few pieces of foam and you're ready to go. Of course, all the mounting hardware, a bit of thermal paste, along with the instructions are included. Aesthetically, I have to say, it looks much better in real life than what you see in pictures. It sure is a aesthetically pleasing, elegant cooler. Of course, the top cover takes a lot of credit for that, with its metal and mesh mix making it rather eye-catchy. What I always really like, black coating on a heatsink. According to Be Quiet, that is ceramic coating. Be Quiet's in-house Silent Wings PWM fans are used, each in different sizes. The outer one is 120mm and is ordinarily attached using metal clips, so that if necessary, you could adjust the height of the fan if the ram ever ends up being too tall. And the second fan at 135mm is located in the center of the heatsink. To gain access to it, we simply pull the top cover off, then loosen the upper plastic frame of the bracket, then pull the fan and everything out. At first glance, everything seems very elegant and well thought out, but if you look closer, it quickly becomes clear that several proprietary solutions are being used here. You may or may not know how lowly I think of such. Basically, the fans are connected to the motherboard using a 4-pin PWM header. So far so good. However, in order to connect the two fans to each other, some kind of proprietary connector is used. It is nice and compact, but far from ideal if you wish to slap on different fans at some point or maybe even right away. Well, that wouldn't even be half as bad. What I see as more critical is the fact that no standard-sized fan is used in the middle. On the one hand, 135mm is a bit unusual, so the selection of fans to go for is rather limited, and on the other hand, the fan is pretty much attached and integrated into the design elements of the entire cooler, so there would be no real sensible way for us to upgrade the cooler using off-the-shelf replacement fans to make use of the cooler for all eternity. Also integrated in the middle element is a small fan control switch, allowing for a performance and quiet mode. Out of the box, it's set to P mode, performance mode. That's when the 120mm fan achieves a maximum of 2000 RPM, while the 135mm one achieves 1700 RPM. In quiet mode, that's 1500 and 1300 RPM respectively. Compared to many cooling competitors, however, the number of heat pipes is a step up. Instead of relying on the usual 6 heat pipes, we get a total of 7, with the unchanged diameter of 6mm. As for CPU sockets, we see support for both the latest Intel and AMD ones. Installing the Darkrock Pro 5 onto both my AMD and Intel test system was quick and smooth. This actually deserves some praise by me, because Be Quiet seem to have largely standardized their mounting kits and methods, so that the same mounting assembly kit is used for even their AIO liquid coolers. Normal or slightly above average tall memory does not cause any clearance issues when combined with the Darkrock Pro 5. If necessary, the outer fan can be moved further up, but that would no longer be visually appealing. In my case, fortunately, that's not even remotely a necessity. As usual, tests are carried out with 2 CPUs. First I'll go with the AMD Ryzen 7 3800X, followed by tests with the Intel Core i9 13900K locked down to its 253 watt power limit, max noise levels. Right away, the Darkrock Pro 5 lands in first place. 41 decibels is pretty good for the fans running at their max RPM. but we are talking about the Q mode, quiet setting here, when letting the fan spin up to their absolute max without any restrictions in place. A total of 48 decibels can be measured in my case. This is actually on the quieter side, but certainly noticeably louder than in Q mode. Temperatures at max fan speed with the AMD 3800X. Here I have to say I was negatively surprised. Even a Deepcool AK620, for instance, which is around $30 cheaper, performs noticeably better in terms of cooling. And keep in mind, we are already comparing the results achieved in P mode. Interestingly, the Dark Rock Pro 5 is hardly more powerful than even a, in theory, weaker and noticeably more affordable Pure Rock 2 FX out of Be Quiet's very own lineup. I made sure to run several tests to check and confirm they're accurate. Apparently, the Dark Rock Pro 5 and Ryzen, at least the 3000 series, are not a particularly good combination. And that is a risk when dealing with CPU coolers. Not every cooler is equally as good for all CPUs on the market, because individual CPUs have slightly different layouts, so to speak. What about a more recent Intel CPU? Temperatures at max fan speed with the Intel 13900K. The Dark Rock Pro 5 performs much better in the Prime 95 stress test with all fans at their maximum speed. Here we see some tough competition. The Alpenphone Brocken 4 Max is getting some competition, and we see the Dark Rock Pro 5 beating Deepcool's overall champion AK620 by 2 degrees Celsius. In quiet mode, it's a tie. In the Cinebench 2024 test, CPUs sometimes show an even greater heat output. Here the Dark Rock Pro 5 surpasses the AK620 and especially the Brocken 4 Max by a few degrees. Even in Q mode, we are ahead by 1 degree. That is quite the noteworthy result. Temperatures at a fixed 40 decibels. Now all cooling solutions are leveled to run at a noise level of exactly 40 decibels. This is where the majority of the tested CPU coolers struggle to cope with the 13900K. The AK620 is officially totally overwhelmed and is already making the CPU run at its specified max temperature of 100 degrees. At 99 degrees, the Alpenphone and Dark Rock Pro 5 are ahead by only a single degree, but manage to maintain the CPU clock speed without the CPU having to thermal throttle. Even the Cougar 240mm AIO liquid cooler is struggling within this discipline. If we now move on to the corresponding Cinebench 2024 test, among the coolers giving up, in addition to the AK620, now also is today's Dark Rock Pro 5. The heat output is simply too much to handle. Surprisingly, the Alpenphone Brocken 4 Max and that 240mm AIO by Cougar suddenly seem to be performing a lot better. What is certain, however, is that air coolers have a hard time taking care of the toasty 13900K, particularly when putting on some heavy loads. Conclusion: the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 5 all in all is a good air cooler. Unfortunately, it is also plagued with some weaknesses. On the one hand, it is clear that in terms of cooling performance or effectiveness, it's not particularly well suited for any random CPU or platform out there. And on the other hand, questionable design choices were made, in my opinion. It seems to me the Be Quiet team basically had the right approaches and ideas, but kinda rushed them to get the cooler out in the market as quickly as possible without working on a more mature solution. For instance, the element, the bracket in the center, would have been an excellent idea for installing and removing the fan if they had gone for completely standard dimensions and had offered to use any fan instead. Aside from the shortcomings mentioned, the Dark Rock Pro 5 is really impressive as far as noise levels are concerned, although that has always been one of Be Quiet's strong points. In terms of pricing, money may or may not could have been saved if the switch between quiet and performance mode had been omitted. In my opinion, this is a somewhat unnecessary feature, as you could simply lower the fan speeds via the motherboard anyway, but perhaps this is a cooler aimed towards novices who don't like messing around with the BIOS just yet. That might be it. In any case, I wouldn't speak of a particularly good or bad price-performance ratio. It's just okay, no more, no less. I haven't tested with an AM5 CPU, but to be on the safe side, I'd avoid the Dark Rock Pro 5 as an AMD user. anyone running an Intel CPU should be able to expect pretty sweet cooling performance. Despite the drawbacks, the Dark Rock Pro 5 still deserves a recommendation. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If not, just go ahead and hit the dislike button. With that said, thank you very much for watching, and until the next one.